In the video essay and film criticism community, I often see the word pretentious thrown around like it's a dirty word. If a film is too artsy or symbolic, it's pretentious. If it's over-stylized and has a long runtime, it's pretentious. I think the word is misused, and I think sometimes people use it in order to not have to provide further criticism. Because, in general, I think pretentiousness is a good thing. Defining pretentious so we're all on the same page means attempting to impress by affecting greater importance, talent, culture, etc. than is actually possessed. So addressing one aspect going by this definition, is it always wrong to try and convey greater symbolism, metaphors, or meaning from simply mundane or boring situations? Take the opening shot from Michael Haneke's film, Cash. It's a still shot of the outside of someone's house, and for a little over 2 minutes, there's no dialogue or music. We simply hear natural sounds. Birds chirping, a woman leaves the house, someone rides a bike across the street, with the audience not knowing if any of these people are even relevant to the story. We don't know if this is a POV shot from someone in the alleyway, or just a camera angle that's waiting for something to happen. When someone finally speaks, it's a man and woman, seemingly confused, and talking about where something was found. After almost 3 minutes, the shot finally changes to the protagonist walking across the street to see if he can find where the opening shot was taken from. And then it goes right back to the initial framing. But now we find out that this opening clip is really a recording of their own house that someone has sent to them on tape. I think the approach this film begins with could be considered pretentious by some, but I don't think it quite fits our previous definition, because it's not trying to affect greater importance than is actually possessed. Its mundanity does actually possess a great deal of significance to the overall story. The extended shot time allows the viewer to draw conclusions about what it could mean, and its simplicity is actually deceptive, because now every time we return to that type of framing throughout the film, we get a greater sense of unease because of the context. So at first, this seemingly plain shot, which if it were only a few seconds long would resemble an establishing shot from something like Family Guy, now adds a brilliant layer of subtle atmosphere that intrigues the viewer the longer that the shot lingers. In order to not just attack a straw man, I think there are more examples and definitions of pretentiousness that the public thinks of when they say it negatively about a film. A big one is that the filmmaker is being too self-indulgent. This is often brought up when a film has an excessively long runtime. The thing is, if you love a film, don't you wish it were longer? Don't you wish you could spend more time in that world and learn even more about the characters? Especially if it's an original film that won't get milked for sequels, because that could very well be the only time those characters exist. I understand the lack of free time some people have to not be able to watch something so lengthy, or even that it might be intimidating to have to commit that much time to something, because if you don't like it, then you wasted even more time than you wanted to already. But it feels amazing when the commitment pays off. Sure, in extremely long films, there are some scenes that are just more important or more interesting than others, but I'd always rather have them retain some boring moments instead of the director or studio stressing about runtime and then cutting out too much material. People also see self-indulgence as the director basking in their own egotistical brilliance and forcing the same artistic choices into all of their films. For example, I've seen Wes Anderson be accused of being pretentious, and I disagree. His films are instantly recognizable by his particular style, and he definitely just does whatever he wants. But the tone and intentions don't come across as being grandiloquent or pompous. A lot of his characters can be pretentious themselves, but I think that's just his style of comedy, and he doesn't seem to take himself too seriously. So in order to be considered pretentious, I think the filmmaker has to be serious in wanting to impress and provoke people. In order to do this, they likely have controversial and taboo material that they want to comment on in a way that makes them appear intelligent. And maybe they even look down on those that don't understand them. A director closer to this category would be Lars von Trier. In his latest film, The House That Jack Built, some people say that the random metaphors and injections of his personal beliefs make it snobbish and pseudo-intellectual. Even if these would qualify him to be pretentious, I in no way think that that's a bad thing. It's okay to not gravitate towards his particular style, but pretentiousness shouldn't be the insult that it is. I think self-indulgence is a good thing. Don't we want filmmakers not making the same mundane, generic, run-of-the-mill, average nonsense? There's always new Hollywood mediocrity to point this out in. These films release, we criticize the industry, and then move on to the next one they kick out. Each one is forgettable and leaves no impact. So if a majority of the films that come out anyways won't be remembered, then what's the harm with the filmmaker doing something else? If you don't like it, then why can't it just join the mountain of the other films you dislike? But for the people they resonate with, they're far more powerful than any mainstream movie could be because it feels tailored to them personally. It feels like the filmmaker's blood, sweat, and tears were spent crafting a unique story just for you. And those idiosyncrasies from the director can make it feel more intimate.
The little idiosyncrasies that only I know about. People call these things imperfections. But they're not. Oh, that's the good stuff.
Look at the esoteric metaphors in the house that Jack built, like comparing decaying human bodies to grapes. Jack goes off on a tangent explaining the various methods farmers employ to get the sugar saturation higher and other random facts about their cultivation. These segments of the movie mostly take the form of slideshows with voiceover, and I guess some people find them random, boring, or disconnected from the overall movie. I think that couldn't be further from the truth, because they're presented through Jack's view of the world and give us insight to how he sees people.
You're a bitter old bastard. You kill art by imposing your moral ruler on life, which I want to free, because art is so immeasurably vaster than we will ever understand. May I illustrate now?
There's no avoiding it, is there?
These are allegories for how he values murder and art in a homogeneous manner. Even if these tangents were unrelated to the overall narrative, it's interesting to see how correlations of various different subjects can be crafted together. They were honestly some of my favorite parts of the film. Maybe you didn't go into this movie about a serial killer hoping to learn about how architecture has changed throughout the years. But so what if you do? Saying it's pretentious isn't the insult that you think it is. Because yes, he's taking random facts and then giving them a greater meaning and relation within the story and for the character. I personally think that that's captivating writing, but I don't belittle others who happen to not like it. I also see nothing wrong with using a film as a jumping off point to express your opinions on numerous different subjects, even if it's something that I don't agree with, because it's still fair to criticize the beliefs themselves, of course. When a filmmaker does it well, I think it's an intriguing method for them to try and verbalize and communicate their opinions about taboo topics. However, you can also say that maybe they're using the character as a shield to deflect criticism away from themselves. This could sometimes be the case, but in instances where they are writing a debate between two characters, if they personally side with one position more than the other, they are still writing the opposing remarks against their own beliefs. So they're leaving a window open to the audience to be drawn towards that opinion instead.
I think society would claim that political correctness is a very precise expression of democratic concern for minorities.
And I say that society is as cowardly as the people in it, who in my opinion are also too stupid for democracy.
I understand your point, but I totally disagree.
This can also be an exercise to analyze their own view on a topic as they write it into the script. Isn't this something people love about video essays? Why should the ever-changing medium of film be constrained in how the director can express themselves? I think it's immensely important and valuable for film to be able to address topics that are too uncomfortable for us to discuss in our daily life. Whether you agree or not with Lars von Trier's dialogue, I'd say, at the very least, it provoked thought. Another staple of pretentiousness is style over substance. This is something Zack Snyder, Nicholas Winding Refn, and Guy Ritchie are often accused of. Snyder excessively employs slow motion cinematography throughout his films, with the critique being that the scenes are too long, I guess? That he sacrifices character development by overindulging in the action sequences, or that he just wants to make the scenes look cool but they lack depth. Whether or not he has good character development outside of slow motion is one thing, but I find its incorporation to be extremely effective at advancing the narrative. These longer shots allow me to spend more time with the characters in these small moments. 1 second can turn into 10. Like it might for the character. And in addition, this helps me experience all the emotions they are going through. These sequences are the substance. This is where you can take the time to ponder their actions, potential consequences, intentions, and motivations behind what they're doing. Compare these uses of stylization with the much acclaimed church scene from The Kingsman. This scene is pure visual spectacle and organized chaos. It's dripping with cinematic flair, but I rarely see it criticized. So apart from it being so brilliantly executed, why is this the case? I think one factor is that the film doesn't take itself too seriously. It has sincere moments, of course, but it's just trying to be a fun movie. Snyder, on the other hand, seems to take his films much more seriously. He injects his films with his darker and more pessimistic perspectives, which I, for one, thoroughly appreciate.
My heroes are still innocent, you know? My heroes didn't fucking, lie to America. My heroes didn't, embezzle money from their My heroes didn't fucking commit any atrocities. I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world, okay?
Interestingly enough though, a lot of people who hated Batman v Superman as a whole still seem to like the Batman warehouse fight scene, but then they also hate the Martha moment. I think striving for an emotional character moment should be respected, but unfortunately the outcome just doesn't work for everybody. So to them, Snyder's unpopular perception of the character overshadow any other aspects that they could have enjoyed more. This shows that if people don't connect with the characters first, then any artistic choice they make after that will be tainted because they didn't have a solid foundation. So is it pretentious that Snyder wanted to make a big emotional impact in this scene that perhaps the story wasn't ready for? His intentions are to leave a sentimental significance on the audience. So even if you think he failed, I think the attempt is genuine and respectable. So it's not a negative form of pretentiousness. Gravitating towards different forms of character development and stylization can also just depend on preferential taste. Not everybody will like the long, staring shots without dialogue that Nicholas Winding Refn often has. But again, at least we have various different methods of filmmaking that we can experience. I see no harm in this, especially since projects like these don't get in the way of more popular content being made. Alternatively, if these pretentious films get over-ridiculed just because they didn't have a wide enough appeal, then we risk getting nothing but generic and safe movies. And these actually limit the ability for the other films to get made because they will be seen as not being financially viable anymore. This whole essay, I've been defending pretentiousness, but of course, there are still examples of films that I would say are pretentious in a bad way because they want to come across as deep or insightful, but don't spend the time or have the skill to accomplish this. A recent film that I watched that fits would be Vox Lux. I absolutely loved the first 30 minutes or so of this film. It was directed with incredible care and had a chilling atmosphere and beautiful score. And then the latter 3/4 completely ruined it for me. I can see that they were trying to comment on the effects of celebrity culture, dangers of online extremism, and media sensationalism. But to me, it felt like they brought up these complex topics in passing and then never actually examined them with any depth. And what hurt the most was the amount of artistry that crafted that first 30 minutes. It had really pulled me in and got me excited about the film. And then in the end, it just left me unsatisfied and sour. It's honestly hard to believe that the same director and crew were involved in both parts. Even though I disliked the film, I understand that others could still find value in it. I personally thought it was a missed opportunity, but I don't knock them for trying. It's sad to see how much people hate on something others genuinely love and cherish just because it wasn't to their taste. So I have no problems with pretentious cinema because it can be more impactful, share lesser known stories, and comment on taboo topics that don't get addressed in daily life. And attempting to present something with greater meaning than it actually has can elevate mundanity and make it something beautiful.
Sometimes there's so much beauty in the world. I feel like I can't take it.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you want to support the channel even further, consider joining my Patreon. You can participate in monthly Q&As and get insight into what I'm working on next. And a huge thanks to those of you who are already over there. Thanks for watching my videos.